Good morning, Mrs. Henderson. Good morning, Anne. Good morning, Jessy. Good morning, Charles. Good morning, Dr. Eddie. Thank you very much indeed.
Mhm.
The very first question I want to ask you is, what was the very first thought that crossed your mind when invited to this roundtable on love and kindness? What did you think? The very first thing that crossed your mind, Jessy?
Good timing. I said this. It's always good to talk about love, especially during these times. So I'm very grateful for
Okay,
this opportunity.
thank you. Anne, same question to you, Anne.
To me, I think that love and kindness are very important ingredient in life, and it's time to talk about it.
Mrs. Anderson, how about you?
I thought it was a very timely subject because right now we really could use some love and kindness. So it was important. Mhm.
Thank you. Charles, how about
Well,
you?
I asked myself the question, what is love? How do we interpret love?
Thank you. Dr. Eddie,
The word that came to my mind is challenge. And if you want me to elaborate on that,
of course,
uh,
yes, please.
well, a challenge in the sense that how am I going to talk and contextualize love and kindness in these present times, and what does that mean? So it was very challenging, but at the same time, the challenge I believe also represents what we are facing and what I've heard from my other co-panelists at this very moment. How are we presenting that? How are we showing that? How are we implementing? All these things. So that's what I mean by challenge.
Mhm.
Perfect, because this is the reason why we're all here. I want to ask you. So I'll start with you, Anne. What would be your definitions for love and kindness if you are to define them?
As I said in the French version of it, for me, love is God. Love is the gift of God to men. Is the gift uh, of man to another man. Love is as I say, the emotional, uh, psychological, and spiritual food. When I thought about kindness, I thought about one of the equivalent of kindness because it make it more deep. And the other synonym of kindness is the word benevolent. That is a Latin word, and I like this word because is it has two is a combination of two other words. Bene, that means good, uh, and volent, that come from, I think, volo in Latin, that means wish. So kindness is wishing good to someone. And so it's not something that is a lip service. Sometimes you can say the good words, but your heart is not there. So that's why I prefer the word benevolent, because it's wishing good to someone. And when you wish good to someone, you treat that person in a certain way.
Well,
Thank you.
wishing good to someone is abstract. It's not practical. Kindness is a better word because kindness is the practical aspect of love. You demonstrate kindness by giving, by doing something. Benevolence is passive. I
Yeah.
wish you well.
No, for me, I
I
disagree.
have the word here.
No, no, because
Benevolent.
it
I have it
is,
right here.
yeah, yeah. But Brother Macaulay, when you
Yes.
want the good for someone, is not a passive thing. Because in the term in relationship, we are talking about love and kindness. If you are in a relationship and you wish good to somebody, is not passive because you
Well,
live
you
with
do
that
it.
person,
If
because
you
you
don't do
interact
it,
with that person.
you do it. You do it. You do it.
Yes, but
And when
doing
you do
it,
it's
it's not
kindness.
because you wish something that you don't do it. Because everything starts by the inside. What you do outside starts inside. So you cannot despite what starts in the mind of a person. If not, you don't do it. You do
Well,
because you feel it, because it's inside you.
okay,
But
we
let us
spoke
not have the
about,
argument and let other people talk
well,
about
let,
that.
let, 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 let me say this. When we talk about love, I remember several years ago, I wanted to preach on this topic. God so loved the world. You see, God so loved the world. What did he do? He gave. I went to the dictionary because before I was born in my mother's womb, I would hear the word love. So I went to the dictionary. And what did the dictionary? Funk and Vangels, 1965 edition. It says, love, I copied it, love enhances and promotes the cause of its object. Love enhances and promotes the cause of its object. And to enhance means to add beauty and value to. That is love. You add beauty and value to. And to promote is to move upwards, whether in school or in business or whatever we do, you go upwards. So, from my Christian perspective and background, that is what God did for us. God so loved the world. He made us, he transferred us from being sinners to saints because he added beauty and value to us. That is love. Love promotes, enhances, and promotes the cause of its object. So if I love you, I'll be benevolent to you and I'll be kind to you.
Charles, I take it definition of love from what God says and what God does. Do you have a very own personalized definition of love and kindness, or you go with what God says?
Well, I go with what God says because I agree with that. Those who have been around me don't see them any evil. Though we talk about tough love, I remember one of my nieces, she lives in England. She said when they grew up, because I was the baddest one, they would say, when I was growing up, when they were growing up in discipline. And then she said they compared notes. They said I was the one who loved their mother and all, because I was the one who would say, I will go to prison for you, but you don't do that.
Thank you. Mrs. Henderson, what would be your definition of love and of kindness, please?
My definition would be that love is a feeling and an expression. It can be found everywhere if one finds it. And as far as kindness, for me, kindness is being gracious and is also an expression of being gracious.
Thank you. Jessy, same question. Your definition of love and your definition of kindness.
So I love this because it's a very, I think, challenging, as Dr. was saying, subject. From the theoretical background, I remember being taught that love, it could be love agape, love eros, or love philios, like depending on how we express it. Um, for my own personal, I think that I cannot like clearly structure what love is as an affection because it could be open. And this is something that I'm still learning. My definition of love versus understanding the concept of that affection from others, what they mean by love. And then that takes me to kindness, that empathy and that compassion. When I express that feeling or that affection, that becomes that kindness, that compassion, and that kindness. However, how can I see it versus how another person can perceive it? That will be the connection between love and kindness.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Eddie. So your definition of love and your definition of kindness, please.
Thank you. One thing that I wanted to do in the context of this conversation about love and kindness was to contextualize that in the framework of what we do at the Coalition of African Communities.
That would
And
have been my next
Good.
point,
Thank
because
you.
I'm going to ask each one of us to show me in your personal and professional lives how you do practice love and kindness.
I think that would be a more perfect question for me because as Reverend Macaulay said, and anybody else, we have to put that into a context and show that in the work that we do. But again, for me, it is about how we uplift people, how we empower people, and there is another word that is very dear to me: how we bring hope to people in this world that we live in. And hope is actually the center of the work that we do. But I will be waiting for the other questions, not to jump ahead.
Thank you. So let's go to the next question, since it's been brought up. Charles, in your personal as well as your professional life, how do you practice? Because I think love is something, if I understood you well, love is something we practice more than we think. So how do you practice love and kindness?
Again, first of all, when you love somebody, you have to be kind to that person. And kindness is the practical side of love. I remember several years ago, well, the person is dead now. I had a girlfriend. Every time she came to me, she brought me a gift. Every time she came to me, she brought me a gift. That is love. That is love. My wife would say she worshipped the ground I walked on. That is love.
Thank you. And in your line of work, how do you practice love and kindness with the people you work with or collaborate with?
Well, you enhance, you add beauty and value to. You begin to mold them. Like there are certain words we can use, certain terms we can use. Now, we talk about education. Two Latin words, is just the letter E. It means out of, and euchare is to lead. You lead out of. And I would ask myself, if you lead out of, where do you lead that person to? So you lead the person out of the level, again, by promoting the person, by lifting the person up, by showing the person, teaching the person step by step. I've been a pastor, I've been an actor, I've been a teacher. So you take the person step by step and lead the person the way the person must go. You see, you hear people say, train up a child in the way he should go. Mm. But the way how we train the child is to look for the gifts and the talents that God has given the child and lead the child in that way. Like Africa coalition. Where is Africa going? How do we lead Africa out of this present demise, I would call it, state. How do we love Africa enough? So the practical side is to teach, to lead, to guide. There was a word that we used during the Cold War, indoctrinate. Now we don't use that word, but that is what we do in education, because doctrine, you teach doctrine so that the person will go in the right way, right direction.
Thank you, Charles. Jessy, both in your personal and professional lives, how do you practice love and kindness?
Me?
Question was to Jessy.
Jessy.
So I was just thinking in my personal, I think that currently I'm in that transition because as advocate or mental health professional, I usually advocated for that person and trying to find avenues, resources. I think that my personal and professional concept of love now in community development has been shaped under having a little more awareness of my. I think that's like when I can see myself and listen more to my mouth. That's the way that I'm showing that love. I have my own perception and my own beliefs around how I express that. My openness to express that love is understand that there are different views and different directions to express it, even though sometimes it's hard for me to understand. So listening is like what I can value a little more. And even though at times I just want to explode, that serving and listening is key for my new journey in expressing and understanding love.
You, Mrs. Anderson, in both your private and professional lives, how do you practice love as well as kindness?
Yes. In my professional life, I'm the founder of a mental and behavior health organization. So I live out my faith in my work. It is purpose for me. And as such, I start from the recruitment of my staff, as well as what we give to the clients that we serve, because I serve in a role also as a therapist. As a therapist, I must be a good listener. And as a good listener, I should be a compassionate person. And a compassionate person looks at the other person, feel what the other person is feeling, but also have a solution to add to that person to make their life better. So it's different from being empathetic.
Mm.
So therefore, I promote compassion through the therapists that I hire. I want them to show that compassion in the clients that we serve, and so do I. So by doing so, we can bring out the best in the clientele. We look at the unique individual, and when you show compassion, their strengths, and you work with them from a strength-based approach, you're going to get the best from them as you diminish their weaknesses. In my personal life, I use the same process because my love of God should show through me as I communicate with other people on a daily basis. And I hope that it does. And because of that, my feelings and desire and compassion for the people around me should be exemplified in the things that I do, what I say, and how I carry myself. And I believe that that is evident.
Thank you very much indeed. Anna, could you tell us, please, how you practice love and kindness in both your personal and professional?
Um, in my personal life, I am somebody who like to encourage people and always hopeful. I always see the good side of things, and I always tell people that yes, they can, because God has put in them what they need to succeed. Um, so the way I practice that is to tell people that they are lovable, and because they are lovable, they have to love themselves and share the love that they have in them to others. As I say, I believe that love is the food, emotional, psychological, and spiritual food, and that we have as we eat every day. Um, Physical food to nurture our body, we have also to eat every day, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. And is not a one-way street. Is that as I love people, I also receive their love. Uh, because that the way is supposed to be, and that's why uh, we know that the law of love is love others as yourself. um Now kindness, as I say, it's want the good for others. So with my clients, I want the best for them, and because I want the best for them, I think the best for them. And as I think the best for them, it kind of transpires. There are certain things that we don't say, but the body language, what is inside us, transpires when we interact. Somebody can be very um, kind worldwide, but you can see that their heart and their mouth are not connected. So that is why, for me, kindness is just not lip service. Is sincere. Is not hypocritical. Because we live in the society where we know the right word to say. We know what to say to make somebody feel good, and sometimes we can use it to get something out of people, because you know that if you say this kind of word, you put them in the state where they can give you all of their saving account. So for me, kindness is not that. Kindness is that genuine thing that comes from the heart towards the other person.
How about your professional life?
So I told you, my professional life, I listen to the client, and I see myself as the agent of hope, telling them as because my conclusion of 30 years of practice was that love, hope, and faith are the pillars of the emotional, spiritual, and psychological wellness and balance. So I try to convey that message in a practical way.
Thank you. Dr. Eddie, same question. Love and kindness in both your personal and professional life.
I don't know how to separate that because
Good. Good.
yeah, I don't know how to separate that. It will show, it will reverberate. Though I do agree that our personal, private, family life should also be separated from the work that we do, but we carry the same values. As we said in our, as we were growing up, some of our aunties were saying, the things that you do home are the things that you are going to show outside. Reason why they say don't go out there and then shame your family. See, if you want to shame your family within at home, so that nobody will talk about that and shame the entire family. You see, I believe that the best way to show love and kindness, and I'm not going to separate all that. Again, there are two words that are going to be the lead in my conversation in here. It is hope and light. And I believe that we're coming from a perspective of an immigrant serving with AFRICOM, a preeminently immigrant communities, and we understand all the kind of barriers, all the kind of difficulties, obstacles that are paving the way of immigrant communities, were fulfilling their dreams of migrating to the United States. The role of AFRICOM has again been to how do we uplift, how do we inform, how do we provide and connect this community to resources? In order for us to do that, and since I took the leadership of AFRICOM, I've been involved with that organization since its beginning. But in 2014, I took the leadership. And one thing that what we have done is how do we fulfill our mission statements, which is to advocate and organize so that African and Caribbean immigrant communities feel a sense of empowerment, self-sufficiency, and belonging. They got to feel that they belong to the social economic fabric of Philadelphia, that they make their home. They got to be self-sufficient so that they can work. And Reverend Macaulay will quote the scripture very well for us, how God is empowering us to work and not be lazy. But they also have to feel that sense of empowerment so that they can, assert themselves and not continue to be marginalized. Where are they in decision making? Where are they when it comes to voting? So how do we put all of these things together? There is another policy is we do not turn anybody away. I told my staff, anybody that comes and knock at the door, whether they need insurance, we have the contact of AETNA, of all the insurance companies. We need to find a way to help them, either by outsourcing or by providing what we have in here. A week ago, we had I did an emergency rental assistance program application for 2 people, and one of them turned around and wrote this in French, and I'm going to read it by a text message. Hey, Mr. Eric, thank you for the job you did for us today. May God bless you. Those kind of stories are again a good metric for us to measure the ways in which we touch people's lives, the ways in which we bring hope into people's. There was this young lady from a Caribbean country that called me, married, brought in here by her husband, but again, here comes problem. When she talked to me on the phone, I thought, Reverend Macaulay, I was dealing with somebody in her late 20s, early 30s. We are dealing with somebody who are in her early 20s. In America, no family contact and having problems with a husband who brought her here. When I first had a conversation with her, at the end of the conversation, I asked her this question, how do you feel? She said, oh, Mr. Eric, I feel so much better. I thought the situation was hopeless because once she's pregnant, not knowing where to go, she's in the shelter and she needs to fix her immigration thing. The fact that she says, I feel better after talking to you and seeing that there is a possibility of me being helped, that for me is a manifestation of how at AFRICOM we show love and kindness. I'm going to end with the current situation we are living. When COVID-19 started, we all know how our communities were distraught. The hairbreeders who earn meager incomes to help their families have to close their shops. Business owners closed down. I cannot tell you how many phone calls I receive about what are we going to do. Therefore, our food and emergency program that we provided last year, we provided up to $60,000. Of course, we got this money from funders and from foundations. We provided about $60,000 to families, close to 600 family members, either to pay for the bills, either to pay for the phone bills, for electric bills, or emergency, or simply to put food on the table. This at AFRICOM is what we call love and kindness. And there are so many things that I can say about, about what we do, but, I just want to give a wrap up in here.
Thank you. It's something very interesting, and I would like the other panelists, to react on that. You say that what you are in private it's the same. And Mrs. Henderson also said the same. So, do we all agree on the fact that we need first to be loving and kind towards, our family before being able to see it in the world? Am I, saying what you said, right? It first starts at home with the people around you, the values you share with people in your house, in the privacy of your walls, are the same value that will help you work with other people. Charles, am I making a point or am I wrong?
You making a point because it just brought me to what we would say back home. If you don't know where you're going to, you must at least know where you're coming from. So we should be settled. When we know where we belong, how we belong, then we'll be able to transfer and to transpose the love of God, which is kindness. We'll be able to transfer it to other people. I remember when I was a therapist, I asked one client, I said, if it hadn't been for this disease, where would you be? What would you want to do? With that, I began to instill hope. So that the person will come out of where the person was to a better place. We go to prison to teach those people that they are not left behind, that there is still hope for them, even though they are in prison. Their minds must not be in prison. I remember telling them, become a prisoner of Jesus, like Paul said. So you change. Our love has to bring change. And hope brings change. And then you apply faith.
Something else I want you all to on. Dr. Eddie used two beautiful words, hope and Charles, you just mentioned hope and light. So, Anne, how would you tell us what hope and light do intervene and what you do for your clients in all the projects you undertake?
Um, as I say, this is the foundation of my model: love, hope, and faith. Um, Hope is these resources that God has given to us to understand that it doesn't matter how long a night is or dark a night is always followed by a day. This is the law of the nature. We know that even in the places where they have a midnight sun because the days are long in Northern Europe, even if they have 6 months nights, then they have 6 months day. So it is a law. So my way of instilling hope is to review with the person, to remember what the situation they have been in the past, where they felt like they were stuck, they couldn't make it, and somehow they made it and they are alive. So when they can recall that situation, yes, I remember, 5 years ago or 8 years ago or 10 years ago, and when I was a child, they understand that, yes, what I'm feeling right now is this darkness overwhelming me and I cannot see the end of the tunnel, but there is always a end of the tunnel. And the way we work is that we are going to try to help the person see a just a dot of light and let that light grow and grow and grow and grow. And know that my tomorrow is not necessarily what is today. And for me to get to that better tomorrow, first I have to change my mindset and get out of the place of hopelessness and try baby step of hope. This is the way I help, you know, people in my profession to understand what hope is, and that they have already in their past experienced um, a helpless situation. They got out of it. So that means that there is always hope. My tomorrow does not have to be the same as my today.
So, light is something that will come to pierce the darkness the person is dealing with. Is it because
Yes,
they'll see a glimpse of light at the end of the tunnel? So, light comes to pierce darkness.
yes.
Elodie, if I may chime in here very quickly, if you permit me.
Yes.
You said something about the family. The two things I want to say. We are Africans. I am an African, and we know the value of the family. And as a social science professor as well, I know that the family unit is the basic in all of the societies that we live in. Here in the United States, we continue to talk about how the Black American issues, one of the dimension of that issue is the brokenness of the family units, because and that can be traced back to the period of slavery and all the mechanisms, systemic barriers that were put in place that continue to break that unit. We talk about the importance of the family. We talk about the importance of fathers. We talk about how disastrous it has become to have a single parenthood, for instance, which means that what the father or the family is an important unit. And also another from our Bible or biblical teachings that we receive. This past Sunday, our pastor, Reverend Jiriga, preached on Psalm 133 on how it is good for brethren that to dwell together, because that's where, right, the blessings, were pour as if it is pouring from down the beard of Aaron. But that brethren, what brings them together is that sense of family, to be born in Christ. That's the family, right? How, if we are not able to show that love, exercise and practice that love with the members of our close family, how do we give ourselves the time to do it outside? So the family is where we practice that. The second thing about the measurement of hope. How do we measure hope? Simply by asking the people we give the service to. And that's why at AFRICOM we love to collect stories. In my early years as a leaders, we were more concerned with numbers. How many people we serve? How many people we touch? How many people we reach? But now we have added another layer. What is it that the people that we outreach to are saying about the services that we provide? How can we improve that? Ruth and all the panelists, it feels great when a single mother in the United States or an immigrant family calls you back and say, thank you, we were able to get our pandemic unemployment compensation. Or thank you, we were able to enroll our children into school. The simple word, thank you. And sometimes that will come with, what do we do for you? No, it is a non-profit organization. I don't take money. That's the policy. But can we give a token, write a check if you can to AFRICOM? Or, okay, can we cook food for you to bring? You see, I'm allergic to so many things, so sometimes I find a way to turn that around or turn that away. But again, that's how we measure the kind of hope we have instilled in people. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much indeed. I would like your co-panelists, to react on hope, light, and then, as you mentioned, the importance of Mrs. Henderson. So let's start with hope and light. And if you want to tell us how do they work together in your eye? And
Oh, yes. I believe in keeping hope alive. And it goes back with me from the civil rights days. I am one who has marched for civil rights in the
Amen.
60s with Dr. Martin Luther King and John Lewis and some of the other ones. I am an old head from back in the day from Alabama. So I had firsthand experience as to being hopeful for my people because there was a need. And as a result, I became the first in a lot of things, like the first to graduate from integrated high school in Marion, Alabama, the first in many things. And I believe that if I could do it, anyone could do it. With a father who had a business and became an entrepreneur during Jim Crow days, I decided if my dad could do it with very little education, I certainly can. So it was the hope that they instilled in me that you can be and do whatever you want. Just keep that hope alive and be a believer and know that God is with you. So I took all of that with me and I learned that your experiences is what make you who you are.
Mm.
And it gave me strength. And that's what I pour out of me into others that I come into contact with. The people that come through my agency are hurt and broken. Their experience might be different from mine, but nevertheless, I have something to offer them and they have something to offer me. And it is an exchange, it's a give and take because we have to instill hope in people. I was never concerned about the numbers of the people that we serve, but to know that we were putting something in them that they could leave to be better people. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do a private agency so that I could do the things that I wanted to do that made a difference for others and that I could see that difference. And that's what's important to me. I know that hope is the key and it's the answer. In every day of my life, without hope, I could not function. And it is up to me to be sure that when I encounter others, that I instill hope in them in some way. And many times they can do the same for us because we are never too old to learn. And I just learn from people every day. And I look at my life as being a change agent. If I can see something that I can do for someone else or for the people around me, whether it is administratively or just pouring into their lives personally, I am here to do that. And when I hear a testimonial from them where they can express the difference that the love and compassion and the caring about them that was poured into them made a difference in their life, it is so important because it's not about what you do unless you do it from the heart. And people can see that. And I do have hope for everybody. And I don't think any of them should give it up. And I always tell people your past experiences does not define who you are. You are a great, unique individual. And I am here to empower you to bring it out.
How about light? So we spoke about, you spoke about hope and light. Um, does light necessarily works hand in hand with hope? You would
Oh,
say?
yes. Oh,
All
yes.
right. Okay.
Without the light, there is nothing. There is so much darkness that just the glimmer of light makes a difference. And I have seen it in many ways. When you look at the darkness that's in our society right now, just walking in a room and bringing a different perspective with you, that glimmer of light brings hope. And people need that and they can see that light. One thing about the light, darkness is heavy, but just a glimmer of light can light up a room and make the difference. And you know that the light is there. And as ambassadors for Christ, We have to be that light and show it to the world. No matter how small we think it is, it will show up in darkness.
Thank you. Jessy, hope and light. What can you tell us about hope and light in your experience?
We are having difficulty hearing her, I hope.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear you now.
thank you.
To mine. So we were talking about family, hope. We were talking about faith. It has to be strongly connected. And we talk about future, like of having hope for the future. Mental health professional in the past, I was trying to, when I visual or them, to help them to see that like now in the mindfulness about their present. Sometimes in an individualistic culture like the United States, where family or the group is not as important as the goal of that single individual, it becomes a challenge to be vulnerable. How to share light when it's not about the group or the family anymore. It's about that single person. When the philosophical connection of the love or that light for the connection with that person as an entity, as just a human being uh, created by God. Now it's an it. Where is this person taking me? What I can get from this person? If I connect with that group, how is that group going to connect me? Versus I'm just connecting with you out of my heart, out of what the Lord, if I put it in a spiritual perspective, the purpose that Miss Judy was talking about. What is my purpose driven? I know, like Dr. Eddie was talking about numbers and outcomes, like how important is not to turn that person away. But is it possible when everything for that person is dark and you're the model of what is that hope? So as I am connecting with light hope, I'm just thinking about myself as a model. How difficult it is, but we are all different models of that hope for a person. Because sometimes when you are in that traumatic or when you're in that challenge as an immigrant, as a Latinx and with after my parents, when they came to this country, 15 years mother was without documents. And I was raised in pain of understanding that maybe my mom was going to is understanding what Dr. Eddie said. I don't know, I don't have enough to provide for my kids. So I model for people to say there is hope. Look, I'm here every day. No, not sure now. The hope is now. The light is now. No matter how there's faith. And by making myself vulnerable and allowing and open myself, like goodness, my weakness, that's where light comes in. That's where that hope and expressed like in generally different manners. When my reality comes forward, when I can connect not with an it, but that that connection, philosophical, that connection, personal connection, beyond whatever need or whatever situation. That will be my goal, to instill hope and light.
Thank you. I'd love you to react on what Dr. Eddie said about the importance of the family as a unit, the importance of the families as your base, the place where everything is, given to you so that you can go strong into the world. Can you talk to us about it, please? The family and its importance in people's lives.
Who are you asking, me or?
Charles,
Oh,
Charles.
I did not hear who you were asking.
Well, okay, you hit the nail right on the head. Right now, about families. Families bring stability. As I want to go home right now. I have 3 grandchildren that I did not dangle on my knees. Although I would also say I did not have a grandfather. Reason, my father's father died the year before I was born, and my mother's father died when I was 2. So I have no experience, but I saw my father become a great grandfather, and I saw how he loved his grandchildren and the great grandchildren, how he doted on them. So I want to go give stability to my grandchildren, give them hope, give them strength, love them. It's very important. But I would say my mother's mother and my mother's sister and her sister did a very good job to us, because my father's mother died when he was about 18. But my mother's mother and and her sister were marvelous people to us. Those 2 women, fabulous. They gave us the stability. They taught us things. They did a lot for us. So I just want to, it is very important, the family, to be structured, to know where you're coming from, where you're going to. Like I would say, my father taught me a lot about people's lives, biographies. My father taught me how people struggled, how people grew up, how people developed hope. And my father was my counselor. My mother would beat me. My father would counsel. So that one was, that was a good combination. It was a good combination. So it gave me a lot of strength and a lot of direction. So that kind of thing I am longing to give. And at the table as a therapist, I would also do that. When they bring a child to me at that time, I would say, what was I thinking when I was this child's age? How do I relate to this child? So those things we have to know, because we have to transfer not just wealth, but legacy. That is the legacy we're giving to the next generation.
Thank you, Charles.
And it takes love to do that, love and devotion.
Thank you, Charles. The question I want to ask to all of you is, would you agree that if we want a better post-COVID society, family ties have to be, enhanced. Family has to be taught to people. The importance of family has to be taught to people. So the society needs a restoration, a teaching of what is family and the importance of family in each and every human being. I'll start again with you, Charles. Going forward.
From COVID, I thought when you mentioned COVID, well, I think there is an isolation in COVID because it drove us away from the extended family. But did it keep us closer to the nuclear family. Grandparents, if they were not part of the home, it was difficult to see them, cousins, aunts, etc. But from now on, people trying to get close to one another again. But how do we meet those needs? What deprivation? We hear on the radio or we see on TV that people have now longed to meet one another. How can you have a family and you don't embrace them? Again, I remember I visited my grandmother's cousin. I gave her my hand. She said, no, that's not the way to do it. Give me a hug. You give a hug. But post-COVID, how do you give somebody a hug? Which is a very practical side of acceptance. We hear from the prodigal son. The father kissed him. How would you kiss in COVID? Are we going to have this virus completely eradicated from the world? Or are we going to live in suspicion? How can I kiss my brother? My cousin died and we couldn't attend the funeral. She died in New York. We couldn't attend the funeral. There are certain things that we have to self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice. If you have to love, that is where the vulnerability of love will come in. Because now you have to give yourself as a sacrifice to show that you practically love this person. You can hug the person, you can kiss the person, you can sit with the person without a mask and talk with the person. It's a very difficult situation, but if we have to do it, we have to do it.
Thank you. Actually, what I had in mind is what Dr. Adi said about, this is the disaster in single parenthood families, families when you have only a mothers, bringing up children where fathers are absent. And what I wanted to ask you, do you think that one of the reasons why society is in darkness, one of the reasons why is because, fathers are no longer, taking care of their family, whether, they make money or not, it's just their presence, the values they can transmit to their children. Do you think one of the problems of the society today is the fact we have quite a high number of families where there's no fathers? And
before I answer this question, I wanted to go back to the concept of family. Family is important, but there is this scripture, we must not restrict the concept of family as the biological family. There is a scripture that says that the Lord lonely in family. For me, I have developed this concept in my line of work that I call the emotional family. And I say to my clients who are either not in good standing with their relationship or who do not have family, because I met some people where, because the birth rate in their family is low, they are both parents were unique parents. They don't have large family. It's strange, but you have them. So I create this concept of what I call emotional family, and I tell people, find an emotional dad, find an emotional mom, find an emotional sister, create your emotional family. For us who come from Africa, it's easiest because we accept the concept of multiple mothers and multiple fathers. What other culture, you only have one mother and nobody has to replace it. Some cultures struggle with that thing. thinking that if you call somebody else mom, you are putting them in competition or you are saying that they are not a good mom. So I explained to them, no, for me, I have many mothers. I came to America 25 years ago and I have a mother here. She's my mother and I have a father here. He's deceased. But, and it doesn't mean that my mother is not important. So I think that when we look the concept of family, we need to look at it in a broader sense because some people did not grow up with their biological father or they did not have a biological father at home, but there was an uncle who was playing that role and help them be balanced. So I think that we must not look at it in the restrictive way. I think that what has created the big issue is that the community stop being their brother keeper. Because when I hear the story of African Americans, they tell me that when they were growing up, if a neighbor saw you misbehaving, he has the right to correct you. And we know that it takes a village to raise a child. So we need the question will be, how do we recreate that village? So the way the children are raised is the responsibility of everybody. And I go back to what earlier I talked about wish. Wish is also a desire, a longing for something to happen. And when you have a longing, you cannot have rest until you satisfy it. So is for me is a motor of doing things because when the longing is that you cannot have peace. You think about it, you dream about it, you talk about. I mean, it's there. It is, it propels you. So I think that we need to. The point of it will be what kind of village are we going to put in place? Are we going to put in place a village that will enhance everybody's well-being and help, or are we going to continue in our separate tribe and clan and refuse to create the village? That's more the way I say it. And I think that we have to be willing to be somebody's else child model. When as we do therapy, when sometimes you work with young children, easily they will call you mom. The mainline philosophy we say, no, tell that child that you are not his mom, to not confuse. And I disagree with that. I say to them, when a child call me mommy, I will not say, no, I'm not your mom, don't call me mommy. I will say, you want me to give to you the good thing that mommy is giving to you, right? Then they will say yes. So I understand that what they are telling me is nurture me, protect me, love me. You know what I'm saying? So I will not say, no, don't call me mommy, because when I say no, I'm telling him, no, I'm not going to nurture you. People don't understand that part. So the question is that in our neighborhood, we have children who are attracted to us for no reason. Let us be their emotional mother. You understand what I'm saying? If you are a man, there is a child that will always want to be around you. Treat him, allow yourself to be their emotional father. Because if what's at home, they doesn't have it, they will have what they need. So let us see the family as a village and say to ourselves, if we look for the good of each other in our village, we will be in good shape after COVID. This is what I can say.
Mrs. Henderson, your take on this?
Yes. Are we speaking on post-COVID or?
Yes, we're speaking because I guess you tell me if you do agree. But my thinking is that we need love and peace in the post-COVID society. Otherwise, it's gonna
Yes.
be a real disaster. I don't know if you all agree with that, but I think the way forward is love and kindness.
It
What do
is.
you?
It is. And I think that COVID brought families together in a different way. We learned how to love each other differently, close together, where some of us were in the same house, but it brought us together from a distance where people did get together, whether it had to be on Zoom or not, and saw each other when normally they would have visited each other or didn't. So I know that many people got together on Zoom in a way that they would not have done personally. So the distance was not there, but we learned how to communicate differently. We learned how to hug or throw kisses differently. We learned how to show affection in a different way. Um, this epidemic brought money into the hands of some people who didn't have as much before. It saved money for others because they didn't have to travel. Many of us got used to being at home, and although we worked from home, it was somewhat of a vacation because we had time on our hands that we weren't commuting and doing different things. And many of us, like myself, actually started taking classes and went back to school. So now I'm attending the doctoral program that I would not have been able to do had COVID not been there because I would have been too busy driving here, going there, and spending time elsewhere. So it gave a different perspective on life and it brought families together. And the ones that found difficulty with their children being at home or their spouses being at home, too much closeness, at least we had us as the mental health therapists to talk, and we could do it from a telephonic perspective. So everybody got served, whereas they didn't have to take public transportation, driving in or being late or just canceling. There was no excuse because if you were making the calls at the specific time, you needed to be there and you would be there because you had nowhere to go. So I saw that we were able to service people in a way and are doing so continually post COVID. So it had its advantages and it had its disadvantages. But overall, I think it had more advantages in the social, economic, and emotional life of people when we exclude the illnesses and the deaths from it. So, and I think it will continue to work that way.
Okay. In the post-COVID society.
Is it me or Jessy?
Jessy,
Yes.
you're next. You're next.
No, I didn't
Okay.
hear it. I didn't hear it. That's why.
That's okay.
So I'm thinking as community development, coordinating event COVID in the community. It was easy to have the public relations and go out and go and visit community organizations. What I do as community development, I was sharing with Dr. Ann, was not only sponsoring programs and assisting community organizations to develop proposals to present to my leadership or other um, foundations around the city. It was a very fulfilling role for me to go from community organization to community organization and sharing that opportunity. Once the COVID came, then the virtual reality, maybe the social distance was not the perfect way to define it, but the physical distance was the initial challenge. What I have seen, I don't know if you can hear me well, from the family perspective, is what Ms. Ann said about raising a child, but not only raising a child. It's not only independent mothers or single mothers. I've seen a lot of independent fathers as well, because mom has to go out and she has to go work, and then dad needs that nurturing role, and at the same time express that authority that um, Mr. Macaulay was like, with our extended family, it's easier. What when we are in a relationship, our unit trained by not only COVID but also social circumstances. It is very, very important, the role of extended family. And here in America, I'm grateful as to share that I extended family. It goes back to my spiritual foundation, and I love that the right move, and that Dr. King, that vision of families. Not only he had a dream, he not only for a single group, a vision that expanded, family that expanded. Not for kids that are not related to me, or a sister, or for my neighbor that sometimes like doesn't give me the best look. That new role give me a new perspective. Like now saying hi with an elbow, hi with my good eye contact. Give me a new perspective about family. I my brother's keeper, my sister's keeper. Um, I think COVID, like as you said, gave us a new opportunity to appreciate life, to appreciate like the importance of maybe the family that is not anymore with me, but I loved and love and treasure your words, Mr. Charles, like a legacy. That legacy is still with me, and I don't need to give it to maybe a blood related like a person, but also my family is the family that God assigned me. That emotional family, Miss Anne, is maybe assigned by divine like connection. And I feel that COVID gave us like a new sense of uh, new direction in terms of who is family, who am I responsible for. Um, as community development, I'm here, and I every time that I have the opportunity to support like financially, even the money is not mine, is from corporate. I can tell people, oh, this is the way that you do it. This is the way that you write it. If not, I write it for you. If not, I'll share it with you. Um, it is because family finds the good and shares it with their family. So I feel that that's something that we need to instill more, and I think that it takes a village. But how can we start, like, not from the theory to the practical aspect? It takes a little more effort from us, and well, I'm here for you. I now I'm thinking, how can I help my new family? Now I'm listening to all of you. I'm saying, how can I connect them? So I think that that's what we have to be actively thinking. How can I help my family? That will make us well.
Thank you, Jessy. I love the fact you mentioned Dr. King because Dr. Adi spoke earlier on about the church as a family. So, question to you, Dr. Adi, how can the church be um, everybody's family tomorrow in our post-COVID society? How can the church teach the word, the commandment, love your neighbor as yourself? Because it's what Christians are meant to be. They're meant to be the salt, the earth, and the light of the world. Isn't Christian, aren't Christian called to be that in the post-COVID society? Aren't every Christian called to give love, to practice love, and to be the neighbor, to be the uncle, the mother, the nephew of people, Dr. Adi, and then the rest of the panelists.
Thank you, Ruth, for this question. I worship with, the ministry. The name of that ministry with Reverend Jiriga is the Christian Church of Love and Good Works. Okay, And the favorite scriptures that founded that ministry drawn from Galatians chapter 5, from Ephesians chapter 2. Of course, the wonderful scripture about, love and what it means in the book of Corinthians. And of course, what I just quoted, earlier, Psalm 133, what it means for brethren to dwell together. And I believe that the foundation of the church, as we said, God is love. God is love. From all the things that what we do according to the Bible, for us who are Christians, right? Anything that we do, if love, if charity is not in the midst of it, or is not the foundation of it, then it is void. Because at the end of the day, is many other people out there who do not have this Christian love can do the same thing. I told you earlier about the work that AFRICOM does, but there are plenty other organizations as well that are led by people who are not Christians, who also provide those services. You do also have quite a number of rosy Christians, whatever you call them, who are also providing services. But what makes the difference between the services that they provide and what we provide is the value of this Christian love. So I do believe, from what I have experienced in the church and the group where I worship, that the church definitely has a way to go and has a role to play. Matter of fact, if we want to be very practical, the church has played a very instrumental role for immigrant families. Before AFRICOM and all those social agencies that in Philadelphia were created, right, to help immigrant families, the church was the first resource for the families. When we talk about Philadelphia as being a sanctuary city, the sanctuary movement started with the church, the Catholic Church, right? And even today, in the COVID era, we saw we've seen how the church was stepped up. The food bank, the food pantry, the food distributions, right? Providing even a safe haven for people who maybe are losing their homes. Some churches are providing sanctuaries to some immigrant families that are battling the immigration system or simply are homeless. Some churches have facilities that will welcome the homeless. So it goes without doubt. Philadelphia even is going through a situation of unprecedented, I will say, gun violence, because the numbers are actually in pace to surpass what happened in the years prior, which means that the church, again, you see all these clergymen, clergywomen stepping up, praying. What do we do to curb down and eliminate this horrendous rate of gun violence in the city of Philadelphia? These are typical examples, again, of how the church demonstrates that it has a role to play in teaching love, showing the way of implementing love, and of course making Philadelphia stand. Right? I don't know if all the panelists are from Philadelphia, but when we landed it in here, even before we landed, we learned that Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love. Then our female, and the women also added sisterly affection. Where have this brotherly love and sisterly affection gone? In the twinkle of, I don't know how many years, Philadelphia is ranking high in this violence. And it is affecting also our immigrant families. How many immigrant children, did not die? Again, we have to show love in there. I'm going to end this this answer with chiming in with the post-COVID about the family. I do believe, and Judith said it right. COVID-19, brought quite some interesting things, but at the same time, a lot of difficulties. And I was glad to hear that, she highlighted the good thing that happened, not without thinking of with any attempt of putting under the rug anything that is bad, because we also know statistics showing alcoholism has increased because of COVID-19. Drug abuse, substance abuse has increased. Violence and domestic violence also has been on the rise because of COVID-19 within the family unit. Post-COVID, here's what I believe. Maybe as members of this august city of Philadelphia, we need to go back to how the state has entered the homes and the families to help break apart the most important cell in the family, in the society, which is the family. The child welfare system post-COVID needs to be attacked frontally. Councilman David Ho and many other agencies are trying to review or calling the ways in which the child welfare system in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania works that takes the children away from the parent, sometimes with great difficulties to retrieve those children who are placed in the child welfare system to feed what kind of industry in there. And when you see the number of families that lose their children to this system, again, it is what we call the black and brown families. This injustice is in the post-COVID era we need to attack. And I also believe that we need to invest more in our communities, in our families. We talk about underserved families. We talk about low-income families. In Philadelphia, we know poverty runs high. The city of Philadelphia, I was at the second inauguration of Mayor Kenney, and they all promised to attack poverty. But you know what? The former mayor before Kenney, attacked that. The mayor before that mayor, who was John Street, also attacked that. Mayor Rendell attacked that. In the past 30 years, why is that Philadelphia continues to host immigrants? Many families, the population is growing, and still poverty is riding at the same high rate. These are the things that I believe post-COVID has exacerbated, and we need to attack if we want to have a stable families. That's what I wanted to chime in here to bring these two questions together. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. When I mention family, when I mention church, each as Christians, we know that each one is church, and Paul speaks about boldness. So in the post-COVID society, how each and every Christian can be bold and show God's love to their neighbor, Charles. It's about being bold and coming up with God's creativity to do something, because something has to be done. So Charles.
Well, to be bold is to be radical. But first of all, we have to examine where we're coming from. We have to examine where we're coming from. People talk about us living in a post-Christian era. Post-Christian era. And what gave rise to that was the Europeanization of Christianity. They pay lip service. You hear some Republicans talk about Judeo-Christian principles, ethics, etc. But they are far from it. When you look at the practical side of how they practice Christianity in this country, now the Christianity, first of all, brought about the root of social services from the Queen of Wesley. Social services emerged and the government captured that. But in practical terms, we are living in atheistic society, pay lip service to Christianity. That is how we live today. And with this Hellenization, Europeanization of Christianity, it is difficult to love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. It is difficult to love your neighbor as yourself because it has become individualistic, and you have to step on people to go there. So that is why the question of poverty is not being answered, because it is a dog-eat-dog world, survival of the fittest. That is what has happened. And it will take church to go back to the 613 principles that Moses wrote, that Christ and St. Paul emphasized. Love your neighbor as yourself. unless we go back to those principles, all we do in vain because we don't do it from the Spirit of God. The love of God is being poured in our hearts by the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. We can just do those things because we have to do them, pay lip service to them, and then that's it. There is no Spirit of God inside. If we go back to creation, what happened? It says the earth was without form and void. And the Spirit of God moved over the chaos, moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. So the Spirit of God does not have control, does not move over the surface of the chaos. It's all just blah, 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 blah. We cannot get the authentic result. And it is the Spirit of God that pours the love of God into our hearts. So in order to move with love, kindness, and those things, we need the Spirit of God in the post-COVID era. Post-COVID era, we need that. So we have to go back to the foundations. We have to go back to the foundation and begin to build. What would Christ do? How have we separated? How have we deviated? Because when you see that, it all boils down to money. Why did they have a slave Bible, which is separate from the real Bible? Because there is no love. It is expediency to make money to get to the top. So we as Christians, we have to examine. We have to, as we say, go back, radicalize, and begin to go back to the foundations, see where we've gone wrong, and then in this post-COVID era, because things have happened, I'm glad about what Judith said. It gave me a lot of hope because not a lot of negative things, but she pointed out so many positive things that happened that I'm impressed and amazed. Because a lot of things negative we saw, and that is what is happening for the killings, the isolation, feeling trapped. How do we embrace one another post-COVID? When we take the mask off, when we take the masks off, will the smile be genuine? Will the smile be genuine when we take the mask off?
What do you prefer? That we keep the mask on? You see, Reverend Macaulay, the face mask, has also been an attack on the family, and I'm going to tell you why. Many single people cannot see who they want to date. So we have had less marriage lately.
And
Dr. Ortiz, am I right?
Well,
So
and let's say you've been elected, president of the world, not the states, not the of the world. We're in the post-COVID era, and as a follower of Christ, of somebody, filled with the Holy Spirit, what would be, the measures, the rules? You'll put it, you'll decree, and then, encourage people to implement regarding love and kindness, regarding, light in the world. What would you do?
the tough question. If I'm the president of the world, I think that my first rule will be the share of the good, equality. There is something I have difficulty grasping. I have difficulty to understand that is okay for some people to have billions of dollars per year, where other does not even have 0.000% of the. It doesn't. I said to myself, how can we talk about equality when there is so much difference between the capital resources? For me, the justice will be, and I love the model of the first church. They say that those who have, they put everything in common and they gave everybody the same. If
They
I
call
am
it socialism now.
what I want, the good, let us say they will put all of the money, Bill Gates money, Oprah money, everybody money in one, and divide that by the inhabitants, because that will be the real equality. You know what I'm saying? It will not be a lip service. You understand what I'm saying? Because if we are all equal before God and what we think, the resources of the world has to benefit its inhabitants. For instance, when I look at Africa, I'm appalled that we are the richest continent and we are the poorest continent because our resources are plundered, given away to other people, and then we are despised. We're supposed to be the people who live with the comfort. How could you be in the village where there is uranium and you don't have electricity, but your uranium is taken every day to make central nuclear central uh, elsewhere, and to give them all they need in electricity in a factory? It doesn't make sense. I think that we need to go back to the issue of fairness, real equality, not this superficial with the speech and then the reality is different. So if I'm a president, then what I will do? I say, as the earth, the air of the earth belongs to everybody and everybody has the right to breathe it. The resources of the soil belong to everybody who live in that area, and the benefit of it have to be shared.
Thank you. Mrs. Henderson is a very humble person, so she agreed to only do one term as a president of the world. You come in next. So, what do you do?
What would I do? uh, I would. I believe in equalizing the playing field. Yes, or balancing the playing field. Um, but I would do things that would bring about some peace within the world. Um, I would change a lot of policies that would have to bring some kind of peace, because if we leave it to the individuals, it's just not going to happen, because the individuals have too much power over it. And I would use my authority to make policies to bring about that peace that I know would take place within my term. I think if we bring about peace, there will be more justice. And where there is justice, people will have the opportunity to express themselves in their work life, in their family life, in their spiritual life, in everything around them, because it will give them a certain level of confidence and security coupled with that peace. And they can do wonders just living in that type of environment. That would be what I would do.
Thank you very much indeed. Jessy, you're the next president.
I was just thinking, So I know it sounds like equity is important. I know policies, and I think that's something that I know when we look in biblical scriptures is the, maybe leaders are not doing anymore. It's prayer. Is having this council of elders in not like uh, one individual carrying all the power. Think about all the kings in the Bible and you can see the Old Testament. They all had like prophets or elders like around them. I think that will be in prayer was important. We don't go and I even if I know that from an equity perspective we have to respect other people's beliefs. I think that we're not using that important tool, not anymore. The family altar or us as church actively praying, understanding that there's that the connection of I will do that. I will start like assigning people's like ambassadors, prayer ambassadors. I know it sounds very spiritual, but we can like look more for God, and we think that like it sounds now from our earthly perspective as mythical or something that is oh, you're gonna do prayer, like that is not something. I think is there's power in connecting with God, and I think there's power when we come together in fellowship, and yes, money and economies. I know that when Anne was saying the a communist, or Charles said, "Oh, that is called socialism." And I said, "Money is just a symbol because I can give you now $1 million, and if you don't have the wisdom or you don't have the proper education, you're gonna throw that." Or someone with more power that it maybe not necessarily money power will come and take it back to you, and that's what is happening to our communities of color. It's not only in Africa. Think about like all the diaspora in the Caribbean, in America. We are in the same situation. So I'm thinking this. I am only in this earth temporarily. So I will connect back with my king. As a leader, I will connect back with my king. The understanding that this is only temporary, and we belong to a higher kingdom. And that's I don't have I don't know any other like thing. I think that will be it. Connecting and having elders like to start like building on a spiritual foundation of prayer.
Thank you very much indeed. Dr. AD, you're our next president.
Not for a short period of time, though.
Any amount of time you
Okay,
feel free
right,
to decide,
right.
you know.
Because I am one of those who believe that the length in power does not necessarily determine how bad the leader is. So hopefully I can have enough time to do the following thing post COVID-19. It is first of all to look at how COVID-19 has just uncovered or exacerbated the so many evils and the problems that we actually have been living in this society. So I guess my first reaction will be in the post-COVID era, how do we attack all forms, or I would say all the difficult walls that have risen, right, and exist in the world today. You know, in 2008, before he won the presidential election here in the United States, I'm referring to Barack Obama. He was in Berlin on a campaign trail, and Obama made a speech that still today resonates with me. He said something like, "The Berlin Wall, which symbolizes, what the separation of the world, the Iron Curtain, crumbled down or went down, but at the same time, other walls, maybe more powerful, came up. And those walls are more powerful because they are invisible, yet their impact is being felt. What are those walls? Religious intolerance, racism that still pervades in our world today, ethnic, intolerance, misogyny, bigotry. I mean, you name all these negative isms. How do we ensure, therefore, that the world gets rid, minimize those isms, so that we can have a better world that we live in? My other question will be, how do we make sure that we live up to the values of the 30 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Because it is laid out right there. If the effort is made to even respect maybe 2/3, not one, 2/3, or maybe not 3, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that countries are upholding their responsibilities, I believe we'll live in a better world. I have a question also that will ask, how am I going to ensure that what people have health equity? I'm not going to say equality, health equity, because equity goes beyond equality. Today in COVID era, we are hearing about vaccine nationalism. How countries are holding with public fund the patents of the vaccinations. Some big pharmaceutical companies are making billions of dollars today, while some other countries are lagging behind in a pandemic that we said is threatening the entire world. My other question will be, how do we ensure that our family values are enhanced in our world today? We are more and more destroying the cell by introducing new values, new ways of redefining the family. Finally, how do we put people to work? That's my other question. In an equitable way. People working and being paid fairly, whether it is in the agricultural sector, in the mining sector, in how do we therefore preserve this world from this current destruction? Here are the questions. And I'm sure that to tackle this question, Reverend Macaulay, only one term is not going to be enough. So I will stay in power for as long as I can.
Charles, so he finally left the office. You the next president. So what do you do?
Well, the West called Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore a benign dictator. He was in power for about 30 years, and he did a lot. He developed his country, Singapore. But actually, what Dr. Jessy said is true. If you read the Chronicles in the Bible, spiritual reforms brought a lot of economic gains. From the Chronicles, spiritual reform brought a lot of economic gains in kings like Hezekiah, in David, and all those people. And another thing is, I believe in community development. People should learn to develop their communities, find leaders, elders in different communities so that they look into the needs of the community and develop it. One thing that goes right now as I am here is that Africa has been producing resources for the development of Europe and the rest of the world, and not developing Africa. How do we change that? We must change that. We must change that. Africa must, and only Africa can develop itself. This week coming will mark the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre. What are they going to say about that? 2 weeks ago, we had a bill, anti-Asian bill, but there is still no bill about anti-lynching bill. Anti-Asian hate. Mm-hmm. The bill was passed by House and Congress, but anti-lynching has still not passed. What is happening? We have to examine how we are, our relationship, because when you look at it from the historical context, Africa was relegated to this, that the black person should be the hewer of wood and drawer of water. We saw that in South Africa. They took all the lands and put the people in their mines and to become laborers. We saw the Angola prison system here in, I think in Mississippi. We saw those things that they relegated us, black people. We must be the hewers of wood and drawers of water for white people. How do we change that? How do we change that? And the way our people educated themselves is through the church. The church founded the schools, and then we got enlightened. Declaration of Human Rights. Yes, you see it in the United Nations. But did those human rights extend to black people? 1945, why was the Mau Mau began in 1948? Why was this uprising independence in spite of the Declaration of Human Rights? Because it did not extend to the black people. It's the black people who stand up and begin to fight. The black people must come together. Must come together. We have come together. Otherwise, we are lost. Post-COVID.
Well,
That's
thank you all. I mean, we can go on for hours, hours and hours. Unfortunately, I have a time, um, restriction here. I thank you very much indeed. And maybe this is a conversation we can resume at a later time, because there's so much we can still say. So thank you, Anne. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. Thank you, Jessy. Thank you, Dr. Eddie. And thank you, Charles, for participating. And thank you for your insights, your heart, because you really poured out yourself to our audience. So thank you very much indeed. And whenever you're available, we can, next decide, at a later date to do another roundtable on love and kindness. I thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you